4, 3, 2. This is Gary Peter Carlson with John of Light, and it's video number 12 in the series to expose the people ruling us, having human bodies and reptilian souls. Take it away, John.
Thanks, Gary. I'm excited to talk with you. I am John of the Light on YouTube. I'm excited to talk to you about some of the fundamentals of incarnation, of spirituality, including the law of one, which, you know, I think a lot of your research is based on your understanding of the law of one. Is that correct?
Well, I read the Law of One study guide, David Whitlock's book, a summary of the first 4 or 5 books of the Law of One, and I didn't read all 5 books.
I just think
I learned a lot, and that was the basis of my material. I heavily built on that to understand God's creation, and I think that I have a better understanding of souls and God's creation than anyone else.
Right. Well, I think today we'll try to talk a little bit about spirituality. We'll probably get to empathy and lack of empathy and the differences between humanity and reptilians, which you've talked ad nauseum about in countless videos. So we'll probably touch on that, but instead of getting right to that in this video, I thought we'd talk a little bit about the law of one, about balance, about interconnectedness, and how so many of our experiences lead us to what God desires of us, which is love and service to others. This is so important. You know, your email address is a love and service to others email address. It's everything when it comes to what's truly important to you and to humanity, correct? Love and service to others.
Yes, it is. I think in the Law of One, it says something like God wants to experience itself.
Well, I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to take us forward.
Okay.
You know, you've talked for so long about how so many times in so many different ways you've talked about how we are all one, how we're all interconnected and all part of God and part of God consciousness, and that each of us, we experience some number of cycles of each density. It's sometimes different between densities. Third density, you've clarified, it's one cycle. And as our soul grows and develops, we continue to learn lessons, most often of love, through the decisions and the choices we make in our spiritual development, which you've described in your research as climbing up the spiritual ladder of densities and dimensions as our soul ascends through ascension. Maybe this isn't exactly correct, but making our way back to God, trying to find our way back home, so to speak.
Right. There's 24 levels of God, and third density, the second, third density, and fourth density too is the first level.
All right. Well, I'm going to read a passage that's fundamental to the law of one. In the law of one, and everyone should go buy this book as the first book if they don't have it yet.
They can read it. They can read it free in there, and there's
right.
a link on my website. You don't have to buy it.
So on your website, icheckyoursoul.com, people can go there, and there's a link to go read the law of one for free. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to read a quick passage that's fundamental to what we're going to talk about today. In the law of one, the higher density entity, Ra, says, quote, "The universe is infinite. We can assure you that there is no end to yourselves, your understanding, what you would call your journey of seeking, or your perceptions of the creation." Ra says, to have infinity, you must identify or define the infinity as unity. Otherwise, the term does not have any referent or meaning. In an infinite creator, there is only unity. In truth, Ra says, in truth, there is no right or wrong. There is no polarity, for all will be reconciled at some point in your dance. Ra says, he speaks of the complete unity of thought which binds all things. You might call that God consciousness. Ra says, quote, "You are not speaking of like entities or things. You are everything. Every being, every emotion, every event, every situation, you are unity. You are infinity." Ra says, "You are love, light, light, love. You are. This is the law of one." I thought that was a really important place to start. What do you think?
Yes, it's very profound, and it says so much and more than you can think. I mean, they're pointing out that everything there is one, and your essence of you lives forever.
So one of the reasons I wanted to start there is because he says, and I'm not sure if you would say that God says this, clearly the law of one says this, that there is no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong. All is one. There's only unity. Everything just is and is interconnected, right? Now, in the law of one, they state that God's desire and his desire of us is that of love. Now, this is interesting because God wants of us to learn lessons of love and wants us through our own soul's development and learning to choose love in service to others. So I wanted to ask you this question. I mean, you're, the world's expert on souls and spiritual research. Is that a paradox in your mind? Because if there is no right and wrong, right? There's no right or wrong. Everything is interconnected. You are everything right and you are everything wrong. You are everything. And yet God wants of us love and service to others. I mean, if God has a bias, again, I use that term loosely, toward love and service to others, and yet created a world of total interconnectedness, what is your thought on that? What do you think when you think of this, where he created a world where there's no right or wrong, but has a bias toward love? Do you have a thought on that?
Well, the only way I can say it is at the lowest level, there's like half doing things wrong and half doing things right. And as you go higher and higher, it blends into like everyone doing things right.
All right, well, I have a point. I actually have a point here. I'm not just asking this question open-ended. My point is there must be a reason that God has a bias toward love, and his desire is that, we will choose love when given a certain degree of free will and put in a a balance between good and evil, right and wrong, empathy and no empathy. Did God create this world of there is no right and wrong because he wanted us to make our way through it and discover for ourselves naturally the propensity for love? It seems that way to me. Let me ask the question in another way. There's no right or wrong. Everything is. God balances the universe with equal parts of good and evil, dark and light, souls with empathy and souls lacking empathy. And yet he hopes we choose love through understanding. Is that a paradox? I'm not sure it is. It does feel to me that you can't fully learn to love and understand the light without experiencing and knowing the bad.
I can agree with that.
In other words, can you fully understand good without understanding bad or evil? Can you truly understand the light without going into the dark?
I mean, like at the lower levels, if you have something that somebody else wants to use, at the lowest level, they take it from you. And at the higher levels, you share it with them. And either way, they get to use the thing they want.
All right, here's a simple question.
That makes sense?
Yes. How do you, Gary Peter Carlson, the world's expert on souls and spiritual research, how do you see the need for balance, the need for evil in third density experience? Why is evil very important to the third density experience?
So that you can learn all experiences.
Right.
So you can learn how everything can happen.
I like that.
The evil, I think the evil keeps going less and less. And I think it maybe stops after the 6th level. I'm getting yes on that. There's a little bit of evil in the 6th level, which would be the 9th density. And then that's pretty much the end of it. After that, all kinds of souls combine together to make a bigger being. It's not individual souls anymore after 9th density, the 6th level. And it's like 3,000 souls combined together to make one being, and then there's no evil after that. Because
did you ever see the movie War Games with Matthew Broderick? Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
You do? All right. I just thought it a funny analogy for us old guys.
I hacked into a computer to start World War.
Yeah. So a funny analogy is the AI supercomputer, right? This was an AI government supercomputer.
They didn't use that word AI. That was long before anybody heard of AI.
It was essentially a learning computer. So today we would call that AI. So they had this supercomputer playing a game with the military called thermonuclear war. Okay. And they blamed Matthew Broderick for starting the game play in the supercomputer. Okay. And I just thought it was interesting, just as a funny analogy, that the computer rationalizes after experiencing all bad alternatives, right? That the only winning move is not to play that bad game. I thought that was a really interesting analogy. It's sort of a metaphor, right? You know, once you understand what evil brings you, what bad brings you, what the darkness and the draconian thinking brings you, what the lack of empathy and service to self choices bring you, isn't that God's plan? Isn't that part of the plan, is that you experience all that and end up seeing it as a black hole of hell, and you turn around and turn to the light and choose love?
Yes. And even those draconians, they're on that scale of 1 to 100. And if you don't have empathy like draconians, the higher the number, the more evil you are. 12 is neutral, below 12 is positive, and the higher the number, the more evil, and the draconians are 98 on that scale. But when you go to the higher densities and you communicate with a draconian, they're no longer evil. They're no longer highly negative anymore as soon as you make ascension.
Your research says that God wants those souls without empathy for others, including the reptilians running our planet today. God wants those souls without empathy to learn the same lessons in third density, correct?
Yes.
So God,
I don't know if they learn them exactly the same way, but they have the same lessons, I'm told. Like jealousy and greed and money and things like. You want me to list the lessons?
that's okay. Based on what we just discussed, is that the purpose of making third density so difficult? You've talked about third density as being a density of suffering, and it's like one that so many people, once you graduate from, it's so difficult to choose to want to come back to as a wanderer, for example. It's so hard to come back to. It's such a difficult density of what? Suffering?
Let me explain that. Okay, third density, you get the most athletic body. You get the most excitement, the most highs and lows, the most sorrow and misery. And Earth happens to be one of the hardest planets to live on. If you rated all the planets on how hard they are to live on from 1 to 100, I heard Earth would be like 99 on that scale.
Wow, that's big.
So when a wanderer rotates through the 5 planets, when they put Earth in as one of his planets, he looks down. Well, it's going to be a tough deal this time.
This is going to be a tough one.
See how it goes. I wish I had one of these. I wish I could go to the next bird people planet or whatever.
So for people that are suffering and struggling really hard on Earth, that like the people almost look at us from outside and say, "Yep, that's the way it was intended."
Right.
So
and what makes Earth so hard is that they got these draconian reptilians controlling the place.
And 75% of souls in third density have no empathy?
No, about 2/3.
Okay. So the vast majority of all living intelligent beings in third density have no empathy for others.
About 2/3 have no empathy. About 1/3 have empathy. And the reason is because a soul group that has empathy goes through 3 cycles and then advances to 4th density, where you can't go if you don't have empathy. So all the soul groups without empathy has to stay in 3rd density,
right,
to make ascension to 5th.
Right.
But
Okay.
ones with empathy, after 3 cycles, they can go to 4th density, which is the same power level, but it's like a deluxe 3rd density, and souls without empathy can't go in there.
All right. So let me ask you one last question on this topic, and maybe we move on. So why make 3rd density intentionally for those who are with empathy? Why make it so hard? Is it as simple as like throwing a baby into the deep end of a pool, like rapid exposure to all kinds of challenging experiences means rapid learning, soul learning?
It is for some. I mean, the majority of the new souls probably get to start in 4th density.
Oh, right.
You know, like the 4th density planet, and as souls complete their cycle, a soul group goes through 12 cycles, and then it's ended. It's disbanded. There's no soul groups that are several million years old. They go 12 cycles, which is a little over maybe 350,000 years old in our time, and then that's the end of the soul group. So there's no several million year old groups like some people think. You go through 12 cycles and it's over. But after 3 cycles, you go in 4th density.
Right.
And there's 6 dimensions. You start out in 5th dimension, which we're hoping to get to soon. And there's 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And the 9th and 10th dimensions are so advanced that the people don't need to become star seeds to make ascension. They go right away when they complete their cycle, and the little kids can defeat gravity with their mind and float in the air and everything.
Right.
It's such a high deal from what I heard.
Can I go back and ask you another question on what you just said? I think it's important for viewers to understand what you just said. Did you just say that most souls with empathy go through 4th density, not 3rd?
Yeah, they get to skip their density.
All right, so let me ask about that. So what does that mean for the smaller percentage of souls with empathy, which includes everyone in humanity today on Earth?
Well, let me change that. Okay, probably every soul gets to experience 3rd density. They probably give you some incarnations in 3rd density, but your home planet might be a 4th density planet.
So
But
some people,
while you're a brand new soul starting,
Okay.
they start you.
All right,
I guess every soul does start in 3rd density,
but
and
some,
do well in the right away, and they move them to a 4th density
okay.
planet for good.
It just sounded to me like it sounded to me like if you're one of us, not you and I because we're wanderers, but if you're one of humanity in cycle and Earth is your home planet, you kind of got screwed a little bit because you're spending much more time in
Right,
3rd
yeah.
density.
Yeah. If you're completing if you're qualified for ascension, and you're still on Earth, you didn't do as good as you could, I guess.
So
You should have made it to a different planet. Yes. I hadn't thought about this so much. Now that
Sure.
you're bringing it up, I'm understanding. I guess everybody starts in 3rd density. And usually when you get through about 30% of your cycle, you usually complete the 15 spiritual tests.
Right.
And the reason is because anybody in your oversoul can pass the test. And then when each incarnation's over with, everybody in the oversoul shares everybody else's past life. So anybody like passed the appearance lesson, everybody gets to pass it.
Right.
If somebody passed the greed or jealousy lesson, everybody passed it. So after 30% of the cycle, all 15 spiritual lessons are completed for the oversoul.
Okay. So you and I, you know, to kind of hammer this topic to a conclusion, you and I both don't really believe in coincidence, right? You think that things happen to each of us for a reason, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
No such thing. Even if you're playing poker, every card that comes out for a reason. There's no random card.
no random. Okay. So people often ask, and viewers, you know, they might sympathize with this sentiment, right? People often ask, why did this thing, this really bad thing, have to happen to me, right? Why do bad things have to happen to us, right? And I thought, you know, for everyone out there, you might have some advice, right? Because everyone goes through hell. We're in a third density planet Earth with a majority of souls without empathy. And it's a suffering planet. We're meant to suffer, right? What was that?
If something bad happens to you, you can bet your bankroll against a burnt match that you got the karma to discharge on it.
Okay, that's what I wanted to get to.
Nothing bad can happen to you unless you got the karma to discharge when you get it.
Right. So if you're in third density, as we all are in humanity here on planet Earth, and you're going through just day after day, month after month, year after year, if you're just suffering like over and over again, the best advice you can give to people is what? Just try to learn from it because your soul needed those experiences?
Right. Every time something bad happens, understand, well, I'm getting rid of bad karma.
Getting rid of bad karma.
Getting rid of more bad karma.
And how?
I hope I'm almost done. I hope I completed it all.
I hope I've gotten rid of my bad karma by now.
Yeah, most wanderers like us, in order to become wanderers, we had to be the tops in our field in spirituality. And to come out of fifth density, you got to be in the top 8 in 10,000 when 3/4 of a cycle of fifth density takes place. And that's 0.8% of the wanderers. The other 99.2% of the wanderers happen when they're a quarter cycle into sixth density, and they're in the top 9 in 1,000.
Right.
So every wanderer is really good in spirituality and ain't making a lot of karma and helping others and all that stuff. So then when they come and do their third density planets, if they screw up and get a bunch of bad karma, they're supposed to discharge it before their life's over. I mean, there's exceptions when they make too much. They think about suspending you or you know, give you a couple more lives to discharge it if you've been doing good otherwise. I mean, a wanderer out of sixth density, when he incarnates, his soul splits into 3 bodies. If one of the body becomes a rip-off artist and the other 2 bodies are doing good, after they die, that one got a huge amount of bad karma and the other 2 guys doing okay, that one guy tries to discharge all that karma, you know,
Right.
Sometimes, you know, they would have to like tortured to death or something to try to
Sure.
get rid of it, but they don't want to go that far.
Well, so when you acquire or accrue bad karma, the actions and the choices and the decisions you make either in this lifetime or a prior incarnation, you need to get rid of your bad karma. So if a ton of bad shit is happening to you, just know that it all has to balance out and you're getting rid of the bad that you accrued in an incarnation, correct?
Right. Yeah.
All right. So let's move on to another topic. If you don't mind, I'd like to keep going. Do you mind if this video is a little longer than normal?
We're at 31 minutes now.
I mean, I think we could go another 30, but do you mind if we keep going?
Up to you, or we can make 2 videos, either way.
Well, pretty interconnected.
Well, do what you think. I'll let you decide.
I want to talk about desire. I want to talk about not only God's desire of us, but our own desire. We all have desires. You remember, everyone knows the Rolling Stones. What's their most famous song? You can't always get what you want, right? You know this song. You can't always get what you want. Well, I bet these guys were reptilians. Now I'm not sure, but it's very possible.
Yeah, that band is all reptilians.
Right, and they were misleading us, right? You can't always get what you want. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I want to read a section from the Law of One. This is really important for people to understand, and it really comes back to the experience you get, right? Which is good or bad. If it's bad, it's often because you're burning bad karma. If it's good, maybe you're doing great, right? The Law of One, quote, Ra says, quote, meditation is the best means of attaining understanding, of progressing spiritually, and of understanding the nature of the illusion and the purpose for which you are experiencing it. He goes on to state, quote, desire is the key to what you receive. If you desire it, you shall receive it. This was the Creator's plan, a plan in which all of his parts would receive exactly what they desire. He, God, suggests that it may seem like a paradox, but, quote, we state without exception that man receives exactly what he desires. Now, why do you think, first of all, that goes right into the face of the thinking that you can't always get what you want, right? Why set third density up this way? Gary, the world's expert on souls and spiritual research, why did God or the higher densities set third density up this way, where the Creator's plan is to give you exactly what you desire?
That's a tough question. I'm not sure where I can go with this.
Well, let me get to where I was going. Do you want me to pick up?
Start answering it, and I'll.
All right. So by giving every soul, now this is a question, by giving each soul exactly what they want, what could possibly be accomplished by this? I guess the short answer to me, and I was asking you.
Be careful what you ask for. You may not really want it.
That's a lesson, okay? The short answer to me seemed like to learn. You've got to get through your desires. So, you think you might know what you want, which was to your point just now. You might think you know what you want until you get it. And then you always learn a valuable lesson at that point.
Right. Yeah. You think you want to be in charge, and then you find out that being in charge is too many headaches. And
Sure, guess what? Let me give you an example. Yeah.
It's never it never sounds as good as you want, you know.
I mean, I'm not going to try to go through too many examples, but you know, what you really want was the prettiest girl in school, and you might end up becoming together with the prettiest girl in school, and then you find out soon after that that wasn't the most important thing.
Yeah, she treated you real bad.
And she treated you like shit, and she was a bim or something, right?
She used sex to control you or something.
Right. Maybe she was a terrible, terrible person, and all you were seeing was the physical surface, right?
Right, in the beginning, yeah.
The person who wants drugs, right? You get what you really want is to get high. So you get high, and then you get high again and again, and then you get addicted. And it turns out that you get exactly what you wanted. And how good is that addiction?
It becomes terrible when you run out when you want more of the drug and you can't get any more of the drug because maybe there's no supply of it or you don't have money, and then you go through terrible withdrawals that you never wanted or planned.
And what else does it do?
Horrible.
Right? And it destroys your life. It destroys your marriage. It destroys your relationships.
For your work, your job or whatever.
It destroys your job. It destroys your body. So you learn from exactly what it is that you wanted. I'll give one more example. A lot of us are brainwashed, right? We're brainwashed into thinking that what's most important is money.
Yeah, right.
And so people grow up in this system of indoctrination where like the top of the top, the most important thing is being wealthy or rich and having money. So you bust your ass, you do everything in your power. You think that like money and fancy cars and things and stuff will make you happy. But then when you get those things, you learn an important lesson. You learn that things and stuff don't make you happy. It's love and friendships and interconnectedness with others that promotes your own happiness. It wasn't the things and stuff that mattered. Now, I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't be able to pay bills, that you shouldn't support your family and treat your family and your children to a good life. That's not what I'm talking about. All right, well, let's move on to another topic. You know, we go through each incarnation experiencing lessons from our desires, from our choices and our decisions, and we get what we desire in order to learn from it, right? Do most, if not all of these lessons lead to love or realizations of love? Is that partly your understanding that a lot of these desires that sort of go in the wrong direction, do they often turn us around with some realization and they turn you maybe towards the light?
I would say so. I mean, I'm not real good at this type of thing. I'm more of a black and white guy on how things work,
I know.
And how to explain emotions and how people feel.
Well, I understand. You're from Fifth Density, you know, you've been through it, you know. All right, so here's one. I've got only a couple questions left. I think we're almost done.
Okay.
You've explained to me that those souls without empathy have to learn the same lessons of love, and they graduate up each density just like the rest of us with empathy. They go all the way up to 7th density.
Yeah, they never get empathy.
They never get empathy. But in 7th density, you explained to me that even those without empathy must learn empathy or they never get out of seventh density. Is that
No,
correct?
they just got to be positive.
They got to be positive.
They got to be polarized. You got to be polarized positive to advance a density, or be polarized negative to advance a density.
Until seven.
But when it's time to go to eighth density, you only can be polarized positive. You can no longer be polarized negative.
So this is interesting.
And seventh density normally lasts for 2 cycles. But if you're polarized negative trying to turn positive, you can stay there up to 8 cycles and trying to turn positive. And if you don't do it after 8 cycles, your soul's recycled back into the ether.
So this is so important. So even if you were one of the, in the balance of life in the universe, if you were created as an entity without empathy for others.
Well, let me explain one thing.
Okay.
The being without empathy, for him to be polarized positive, it's over 30. And for somebody with empathy to be polarized positive, it's over 50.
Right.
So their work's different. They got a different number to work with.
It just seems really an important point that, you know, God and the higher densities have set up this schoolhouse, so to speak, of learning and graduating and moving through the densities in your own spiritual development. They've set it up where even if you were brought into this balance of the universe without empathy, by the time you get to seventh density, you must become positive or your soul gets recycled.
Right. In case you were going negative the whole time.
It's like God.
Very few souls would go negative that long. But the few that do, there's a big conglomeration of negative souls at the seventh.
So what does that tell you?
Because you get 8 cycles, because you got to go positive. I mean, you can stay negative and move 5 to 6, 6 to 7.
Right.
No problem. But when you get to 7th, you can't. and so a lot of negative souls get stuck there and stay negative for a few cycles before they finally turn positive. I think it's over 97% of the souls that went all the way up to 7th being negative turn positive. I think less than 3% get recycled.
Okay, well, that tells you everything.
And there's another.
Go ahead.
You're mute. Okay, there's another way. There's another way you can get recycled into the ether too. When you die and you go to the soul plane, people say there's 2 ways to go, and you get stuck reincarnating, and you want to go to this other door and avoid reincarnating. I mean that's actually a bunch of crap. There's only one way to go, and when you get to the soul plane, you can say I don't want to incarnate anymore, and you don't have to. You can just head out, and they kick you off the soul plane. You can go where you want, and after 8 cycles, you can go right up to 5th density and start at the very bottom. And if you did mischief and fun things and scaring people and played a mean ghost or whatever, you'll become a negative, and you'll have to go to a negative planet. And since you won't like that, you say, well, I ain't coming back then. And so you can roam around for up to 27 cycles. And if you don't come back and go to 5th density, at that point, then your soul's also recycled.
It's awesome. I think it's awesome, and it says so much that everyone turns positive, even if you were born and into the whole system. If you were created without empathy, everyone turns positive. That tells you so much.
Or you follow God's plan. You got to cave into God's plan instead of doing your own thing, which is that, like, I don't want to incarnate anymore. You can completely skip normally you go through third density in one cycle, and after 1.82 cycles, if you don't make ascension, you advance to fifth automatically. But that's if you incarnate it when you were supposed to.
Well,
but if you don't incarnate, you can. It takes 8 cycles to make to the fifth density to avoid third density. So I mean, you can maneuver the thing the way you want, but it's not a good course.
Well, look I think we finished what I wanted us to cover in this video. What I would like us to end on is the simplest advice we could give is for people to contemplate what we've talked about today, that we're in a schoolhouse for young souls, and it is about learning, and it's about learning lessons of love. And often you have to experience the dark to understand the light. And if you're going through, I guess this would be our advice, if you're going through hell in third density, you probably are learning some incredibly valuable lessons and have to get rid of this bad karma that you've developed over some number of incarnations. Any final thought?
Yeah, I agree, and that happens a lot on Earth. That's for sure.
So keep on keeping on.
Okay.
And we're sending out a lot of love and light to everyone out there. Our blessings and prayers are with everyone in humanity.
And goodbye. Thanks for watching video 12. And we're on YouTube, Rumble, and BitChute. In case we get thrown off YouTube, we got the same video on the other two. Bye.